So, beloved, the Sermon on the Mount is without doubt one of the most important pieces of moral discourse in history. It's fired the moral imaginations of both Christians and non-Christians for over 2,000 years. Mahatma Gandhi, although a Hindu, read it as part of his prayer every morning and said of it, "Christ's Sermon on the Mount fills me with bliss even today. Its sweet verses have even today the power to quench my agony of soul." The Sermon on the Mount is used extensively by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in his letter from the Birmingham jail and his "I've seen the mountaintop" speech. But it challenges us as well as inspires us. And this section we have today is kind of a downer. "You've heard that it said that those who lived long ago don't commit murder, and all who commit murder will be in danger of judgment. But I say to you that everyone who is angry with their brother or sister will be in danger of judgment. You have heard it said, don't commit adultery. But I say to you that every man who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery in his heart. It was said, whoever divorces his wife must give her a divorce certificate. But I say to you that whoever divorces his wife except for sexual unfaithfulness forces her to commit adultery. You shall not swear falsely, but carry out the vows you have made to the Lord. But I say to you, do not swear at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King." Come on, Jesus, what's going on here? We can't have an angry thought. We can't look at somebody attractive. Divorce is not possible. We can't curse. Ever. And the key to this is in the illustration we find halfway through the lesson. If your right eye causes you to fall into sin, tear it out and throw it away. If your right eye causes you to fall into sin, tear it out and throw it away. If your right hand causes you to fall into sin, chop it off and throw it away. Jesus is using hyperbolic language. They're exaggerated statements or claims not to be taken literally. In no way does he want us to tear out our eyes or chop off our hands. So what's he getting at? Jesus is using figurative language to exhort us to go further than just the letter of the law. While murder is certainly out of bounds, Jesus asks us to go further. Burning, simmering anger towards someone is the root that eventually leads to murder. When we continue to be angry with someone, we tend to dehumanize them, which leads to all kinds of violence, murder being only the ultimate form. Jesus wants us to work to honor the God-given humanity within each person, no matter how much we dislike them. Note that the discussion about adultery only seems to be towards a man thinking about a woman, so ladies, you're off the hook with Ryan Gosling. It's really the same thing with murder here. We can't help feeling how we feel about people we're attracted to. The problem is when we become obsessive, when we objectivize, once again dehumanizing them. And sometimes that can lead us to neglect the important relationships around us. No one who's ever experienced divorce as an adult or as a child of divorced parents would say it's a good and pleasant thing. It might be necessary, it might be freeing, it may even be the right thing, but on one level it's always tragic. It's a tearing of relationship that almost invariably causes pain. In addition, divorce at the time of Jesus was something that could only be initiated by the male and could be done for any reason, often leaving the woman without a family and impoverished. This is why Jesus is speaking specifically to the men. You know, if you divorce your wife, the guilt falls upon you. Swearing is not cussing. It's making a solemn promise with an oath. Jesus tells us you must not pledge by the earth because it's God's footstool. You must not pledge by Jerusalem because it's the city of the great King. You must not pledge by your head because you can't turn one hair white or black. Although we actually can do that these days, but you get the point. This is why some Christians refuse to use a Bible to swear on in court or when taking an oath. Jesus is using this hyperbolic language for two reasons. First, he's pointing out that none of us live without sin. We can't hold ourselves as superior to others just because we don't break the big commandments, because the root of those sins still live in all of our hearts. And second, he's trying to get his hearers, including us, to move from a simple idea of what can I get away with strictly under the law to a place where we use our moral imaginations. After all, we've heard earlier in the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor, blessed are the peacemakers, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. And we all know this isn't how the world generally works. Humanity does not bless these people. If it was, Jesus wouldn't have had to preach it. Jesus is asking us to go beyond legalistic definitions of nonviolence and justice to address the root causes within ourselves. Jesus didn't come to lay down a series of new set commandments. If that had been the point, the law of Moses would have been sufficient. Jesus calls us to use our moral imaginations to see the issues of justice that are deeper than simple questions of legality. We're so absorbed with legality right now in our nation. What can a president do? What can Congress do? What can the courts do? And those are all important questions. But Jesus asks more of his followers in a democracy. He demands that we use our moral imagination. We're not allowed to stop at the question of, is it legal? We're expected to ask the baptismal question, does it seek justice and promote the dignity of every human being? We're to help build the kingdom defined by the Beatitudes. Does it bless the poor? Does it bless the peacemakers? Does it bless the persecuted? In the end, the question will not be a checklist of, did you murder? Did you get divorced? Did you watch your caloric intake? It will be, what is the state of your heart? How open is it? How did you serve? We're called to more than law. We're called to love. Amen.